The morning it happened, the cold wind cut through the quiet streets like a warning no one could hear. A single father walked the same path he had walked for months, carrying a small paper bag of food in one hand and a tired heart in the other. He had no idea that the simple act he had repeated every day would soon uncover a truth so shocking that it would change not only his life, but the life of the woman he had been quietly helping. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping others even when life is hard, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Lonely Dad Strong Heart. Your support keeps these stories alive. The man's name was Daniel. Life had not been kind to him in recent years. 2 years earlier, he had lost his wife in a sudden illness that left him alone with his young daughter, Lily. Since then, every day had felt like a long uphill climb. Daniel worked long hours at a small auto repair shop, his hands always stained with grease, his back aching, but he never complained. Every evening, he hurried home to cook dinner, help Lily with her homework, and try to fill the silence that his wife had once filled with warmth and laughter. Yet even with his struggles, Daniel had a habit that no one really noticed. Every morning before work, he stopped at a small corner near an old bus stop. There, sitting on a worn-out bench wrapped in a faded shawl, was a poor woman who looked as though life had forgotten her long ago. Her name was Maria, though most people in the area never bothered to ask. At first, Daniel had only noticed her in passing. She sat quietly, never begging loudly like others, never disturbing anyone. Just sitting there with tired eyes and a fragile dignity that seemed out of place on the cold pavement. One morning, when Daniel saw her shivering in the rain, something inside him stirred. Maybe it was the memory of how his wife used to help strangers, or maybe it was simply the quiet pain he recognized in her eyes. That day, he bought an extra cup of tea and a small sandwich and handed them to her without saying much. Maria had looked at him with surprise, as if kindness was something rare and unfamiliar. She thanked him softly, her voice trembling with gratitude. From that day on, Daniel made it a routine. Every morning, no matter how tired he was, he brought her something, sometimes food, sometimes warm tea, sometimes just a kind smile and a few words. It became a silent understanding between them. Daniel never asked too many questions, and Maria never told too many stories. But over time, a quiet bond formed. The people in the neighborhood began to notice. Some admired Daniel's kindness, while others shook their heads, saying he had enough problems already. After all, he was a single father barely making ends meet. Why help someone else when his own life was already so difficult? But Daniel believed something simple. He believed that kindness didn't require wealth. It only required a heart that still cared. Months passed, and the seasons slowly changed. Winter crept closer, and the mornings became colder. Daniel began bringing Maria thicker food, sometimes even an extra blanket he had managed to buy cheaply. Maria always looked at him with that same mixture of gratitude and disbelief, as if she still couldn't understand why someone would care about her. What Daniel didn't realize was that Maria had been watching him just as closely. She noticed the way he rushed every morning, the tiredness in his eyes, and the gentle way he spoke about his daughter whenever her name came up. She saw the kindness that remained in him despite the hardships life had thrown his way. To Maria, Daniel wasn't just a helpful stranger anymore. He was a reminder that humanity still existed in a world that had often treated her cruelly. One evening, something unusual happened. Daniel arrived home from work later than usual. The repair shop had been busy, and his boss had warned him that business was slowing down. There was even talk that some workers might lose their jobs soon. The thought worried him deeply. If he lost his job, he didn't know how he would provide for Lily. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Daniel sat alone at the small kitchen table, staring at unpaid bills. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his chest. For a moment, he wondered if the people who criticized him were right. Maybe he should stop helping Maria and focus only on his own survival. But the thought didn't sit well with him. Something inside his heart refused to let go of the small kindness that had become part of his daily life. The next morning, Daniel still brought food to Maria. However, as he approached the bench, he noticed something strange. Maria wasn't there. At first, he assumed she might have gone somewhere else to stay warm. But the bench looked different. Her old bag, the one she always kept beside her, was gone too. Daniel felt a strange sense of worry. It surprised him how much he cared. After all, they had never shared long conversations. Yet the thought of something happening to her unsettled him. Days passed, and Maria didn't return. Daniel kept bringing food for a few mornings, hoping she might appear again, but eventually he had to stop waiting. Life pulled him back into its routine, though a quiet sadness lingered in his mind. Then, about 2 weeks later, something shocking happened. Daniel was called into his boss's office at the repair shop. His heart pounded as he walked in, already fearing the worst. The shop had been struggling, and layoffs seemed inevitable. But instead of bad news, his boss looked strangely confused and said something unexpected. Someone had purchased the shop. Not only that, the new owner had decided to keep all the employees and even improve their salaries. Daniel was stunned. It felt too good to be true. A few hours later, a black car pulled up outside the shop. Everyone stopped working as a well-dressed woman stepped out. She looked confident, graceful, and nothing like the kind of person who usually visited their small, dusty repair garage. Daniel froze when he saw her face. It was Maria, but she looked completely different. Her hair was neatly styled, her clothes elegant, and her posture strong. The same eyes that once carried quiet pain now held calm confidence. The entire shop fell silent as she walked inside. Daniel couldn't believe what he was seeing. His mind struggled to connect the woman standing before him with the one who had sat on that cold bench every morning. Maria approached him slowly, a gentle smile forming on her face. She explained that she had not always been poor. Years ago, she had been a successful businesswoman. But after a series of betrayals and personal tragedies, she had lost everything and ended up living on the streets, hiding from the world while trying to rebuild herself quietly. During that time, she had met many people, but most ignored her or treated her badly. Daniel had been the only one who helped her consistently without expecting anything in return. She had been testing the world, in a way, watching, learning, and waiting until she could stand strong again. And when she finally regained control of her finances and rebuilt her life, she remembered the one person who had shown her kindness when she had nothing. Daniel. So she bought the repair shop. Not as a business investment alone, but as a way to repay the kindness she had received when she needed it most. Daniel felt overwhelmed. He had never imagined that his small daily acts would lead to something like this. To him, it had just been simple compassion. Maria didn't just stop there. She announced plans to improve the shop, create more jobs in the community, and support single parents who were struggling, just like Daniel had been. That day, something changed in Daniel's life. For the first time in years, the heavy weight on his shoulders felt lighter. But more importantly, he realized something powerful: kindness never disappears. Sometimes it travels in quiet circles through the world, returning in ways we never expect. As time passed, Daniel's life slowly improved. The shop grew successful under Maria's leadership, and Daniel eventually became one of the most trusted people there. Lily's future began to look brighter too. Yet Daniel never forgot the mornings when he walked through the cold streets carrying a small bag of food, not knowing that those simple steps were shaping a future far bigger than he could imagine. Now, before we reach the end of this story, I want to ask you something special. If you're watching this, please write in the comments, "Kindness always comes back." It helps spread this message to more people who need to hear it. Because stories like this remind us that even the smallest good action can change someone's life, and sometimes even our own. Years later, when Daniel looked back on those days, he realized something that stayed with him forever. Helping Maria had not just been about charity. It had been about seeing another human being when the world had stopped looking at them. And sometimes, that is the most powerful gift we can give. If this story touched your heart, made you feel emotional, or reminded you that good people still exist in this world, please take a moment to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to Lonely Dad's Strong Heart. Your support helps keep these meaningful stories alive and reaching people who need hope. Because somewhere out there, someone might be waiting for a small act of kindness that could change everything.